Thank you, Donzy Freak, for joining my Patreon. Appreciate that. I'm using a very basic beta FPV goggle and getting ready to invest in a better goggle. I know my question may be beating a dead horse, but I'm not sure what protocol I want to use. I was considering buying HDZero, so I have flexibility. Do you still believe it's a good option for a newbie? HDZero, obviously, it's the right choice if you're running HDZero. If you choose to run Walk Snail with the standalone receiver, there is almost no reduction in performance when using the Walk Snail standalone receiver with the HDZero goggles. A tiny amount of additional latency, not zero. And if you're very latency sensitive, then you should just get the Walk Snail goggles rather than using a standalone receiver. But probably an acceptable performance for most people. As far as analog goes, here's the thing. I've used the HDZero goggles as my primary analog goggles for the last, I don't know, since they came out. I just switched to them and never looked back. And for those who say, what does that mean? Bardwell mostly flies digital. That's true, I do. But going back to like when someone puts the bat signal in the sky and says, Bardwell, I need you. And I go and I teach a class or I do a consulting agreement. For a lot of the time, those were analog. And so I would go and I would spend 2 weeks on a flight line with, four or eight people in the air at a time. Not eight, but like three or four people in the air at a time. Had no issues with my HDZero analog performance. Zero issues. But I hear from racers, and some racers are just switching away from their HDZero goggles. They're just like, it's no good. Because there's some issue with the performance of the HDZero goggles when used with an analog adapter in a high-density environment like a race. They get black screen and rolling screen and other issues. And I have to acknowledge that, even though I haven't personally experienced it. And say that if you're like a racer and you're serious about analog, I've seen other racers rejecting the HDZero goggles because of these issues. I still feel like the HDZero goggles are the best all around. Even today.